Our Monday, July 12th meeting, if you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I just want to remind everyone that there are two opportunities for you to address the school board this evening. The first one will be in a few minutes. We ask that you keep those comments to our action items, and then at the end of the meeting, we have a public comments section that you can sign up for. So with that, we'll move on to our agenda approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you, Mrs. Suze. We have three amendments to the agenda this evening. The first, under Roman numeral 7A1, we have a special recognition this evening, which we'll get to in a moment. We also have under 7B1 some additional personnel recommendations, and under 7D1 some additional professional leave requests under Mrs. Castaneda's agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion.
We have a motion by Dr. Malco,
Second.
second by Ms. Kelly. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Marshall, is there any correspondence?
I have none this evening, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move right on to our liaison committee updates. Dr. Malco?
Thank you. Lake Central Education Foundation, actually they're meeting right now in the library, and they wanted me to share a big thanks to the town of Cherville. They did give us a donation of quite a healthy amount of money, so we wanted to say thanks to the town of Cherville's Chamber of Commerce for that. Town Council. Town of Cherville, Town Council, not the Chamber. Sorry about that. We did not have the grant opportunity this summer, but we will start it again in the fall, working on that at the same time. That we are also asking for volunteers to come and help and be a part of that organization. Again, we try to find fundraisers and ways to raise money so that we can augment and enrich activities in the classroom for our children at Lake Central. That's it. Unless you want me to do the legislative?
Sure.
Okay, with the legislative, I think that where we left off was the meeting when Mr. Slager was here to give us an update from his perspective about the situation in Indianapolis. I'm referring now to board members and also administration. I think there were some questions that some of us had that tended to be a little bit different with an understanding than what Mr. Slager presented. And some of you had asked for another meeting with Mr. Slager so we could get some of those differences ironed out. Is that something you still want to do? Some of it was budget related. Some came from Mr. Slager being budget related. So would you like for me to get that meeting set up? Well, just let me know. I'll send you an email out and we can do it via email, okay?
Thank you.
all.
Dr. Medlin?
No updates at this time, thank you.
Ms. Kelly?
Nothing to report this evening.
Mr. Marshall?
On the Personnel Interview Committee, we did not meet at this time, so nothing to report.
Thank you. And on my two committees, for Dollars for Scholars, checks will be written most likely on Wednesday, and they will head off to the colleges on Thursday. So that'll be done for the school year. So now we'll move on to our official school board business topics consent agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you again, Mrs. Suze. Seek board approval for the minutes from our executive session on June 21st, our special board meeting on June 21st, and our regular board meeting on June 21st. Also seek board approval for the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures that you received last week in your packets.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Ms. Kelly. Any questions or comments?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Motion passes. Thank you. There are no public comments this evening for our action items, so we'll move right into our official school board business topics, regular agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you again, and I see Officer Kissinger in the back, so if he wouldn't mind stepping forward, we have a little special thank you for him this evening. Officer Kissinger is one of our 5 school resource officers. He comes to us from Dyer, and we are excited to announce that he is been awarded the District 1 School Resource Officer of the Year for all of Lake, Porter, Newton, and Jasper counties. He was
Woo, yeah, way to go.
Brian was nominated by staff from Bibbich, Protzman, Kaler, and his good friend from Dyer PD, Jerry Patrick. He was chosen, though, by an actual board that reviews this, the Indiana School Resource Officers Board, and so we congratulate him on that. As we do with our Teachers of the Year nominees and winners, we like to read a comment that was written by somebody who works with Officer Kissinger at the school, and so I will read these words into the record. I truly believe we are a lucky community to have Officer Kissinger protecting, guiding, and watching over our children. His positive attitude is infectious, and students and staff are always happy when he's around. He has a natural ability to lead, and he makes learning about school safety fun. He embodies all of the qualities that we want in a role model for our students. We are fortunate to have him at LC, and it is really wonderful to hear those words, because when we engaged with our towns to get additional officers into our schools, we wanted people like Brian to be officer friendly in those schools and to be a role model for our students. So thank you, Brian, very much.
Thank you.
Officer Kissinger, can you get a
Brian,
picture?
Photo op. Photo op, yeah,
Congratulations.
photo op.
There you go.
Thank you.
So my second item, really quickly, is I just wanted to remind the board that our annual meeting for Indiana School Board Association is October 11th and 12th. That agenda should be coming out here in the next week, somewhere around the 15th. There are 30 days from the time it comes out to get the early bird pricing. We usually like to take advantage of that. So put it on your screen, check your calendar, and then the agenda, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout since we didn't have anybody there last year. My third item is to seek board approval for a webinar that I want to attend, ISBA and the Indiana Association of Public School Superintendents Collective Bargaining Seminar. It is a webinar. There is a fee of $210, and that is coming up later this month. Seek board approval for that item.
We
Make
have
a
a
motion
motion?
to approve?
We have a motion by Ms. Kelly,
Second.
second by Dr. Medlin. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Motion passes, thank you.
Thank you. And for my final topic, which I think has brought this evening, is to address stakeholder concerns regarding the elementary mask protocol for the upcoming school year. As I stated at the Sherrville Chamber last Wednesday, it's the elephant in the room. It's what people want to know. What are you going to do? And so I'll begin by sharing, the timeline, and that is at our August 2nd meeting, administration will make a recommendation on face coverings for elementary students. We have the ability to wait these 3 weeks. Hopefully it'll give us some additional data that'll help us solidify opinion one way or another and still be 10 days before the start of school. What are the factors? I've received some emails in the last week or so, especially asking what are those factors that you'll use to determine what to do. Of course, the first one is community spread. It's something we've been following since the beginning. As of July 5th, and they'll update the data for July 12th on Wednesday of this week. They're always 2 days behind, but they do it on Wednesdays. We had 12 cases per 100,000 Lake County residents. So that's really, really low. And that's a good thing. And so as we've been talking to both the Indiana State Department of Health and the Lake County Department of Health, when we can get through, is at what color on the old scheme would you say you should put masks on kids in elementary schools? So if you looked at the old numbers, the colors that we were paying attention to was orange, which is 100 to 199 cases, positive cases per week per 100,000 people. or red, over 200 cases per 100,000 residents per week. That chart, though, has been removed from all of the state and local websites. So we still like to know, though, what's the number? You know, is there a number there where you say, okay, that spread is not low anymore? That spread is potentially a problem. The piece that has a lot of people debating is the word recommended. So on the CDC website and all the guidance we've got from the state as well, masks have been mandated on public transportation, and in their FAQ, they specifically say, yes, school buses are public transportation. So masks are mandated on school buses. And yet, they've chosen to use the word recommended for classrooms. Some people have reached out to me and said, gosh, it seems like your classrooms could be almost as crowded as a school bus. How can you really say that they're all that different? And there's some validity to that. But the truth is, even in Dr. Box's conference call of last Friday, which I would recommend everybody watching, she made a point to make the distinction between recommended and mandated. So that July 9th press conference is 37 minutes. You can get all the good stuff in the first 21. I think we're going to watch for clusters among our student population or our staff population. We know from the data as of last week, and this came out of her press conference as well, that we were up to 18 counties that had moved out of blue back into yellow. We had one county that was orange and 74 still blue. 49% as of last Friday of Hoosiers are fully vaccinated, but only 33% of the 16 to 29-year-olds and less than 20% of 12 to 15-year-olds. And so we do have population of students in our schools that are not vaccinated. I would add on the data piece, because some people have asked, where's your survey so far? With 2,037 votes in as of this afternoon, we were at 70.3% optional, 29.7% mandatory. So this key language coming out of the Indiana State Department of Health that we're focused on is Dr. Box, again, expressing a difference between recommended and mandated. And so she's fallen short of saying, I wish everybody in elementary schools would put on a mask, but she continues to say, we recommend it for unvaccinated populations. But local school boards will ultimately have the authority to decide which of these recommendations or protocols or restrictions they accept or reject. And so I feel it is sort of some mixed messaging, and it creates a problem for us because we like to be able to make a decision based on telling people if we get to here, this is what we're going to do. So we're still working on that, and we're still hoping to get it. There are people who said, aren't there some other things you can do besides putting masks on kids? And honestly, at full capacity, we won't be 6 feet apart in our classrooms, but we weren't last year either when we got to the end of the year and we were sitting in, at the high school at 82% or whatever we were at the end of the year. So the face coverings really become the only reasonable mitigation practice for us to implement. We're not going to start some kind of random testing. People don't like masks. They sure aren't going to want the invasion of randomly checking people like the universities do to see if you have a flare-up starting. So that's not going to happen in a K-12 district. And so just so the public knows, we're struggling to get that firm guidance of what type of community spread says ramp it up. I am still hopeful that we get that from somebody, but we may or may not. So that's sort of where I stand with the board on what we're trying to collect and what will help determine this mask piece by the start of school.
Questions?
No, I think it makes a lot of sense to wait until that August date and see if we can get some more pertinent data, and just keep moving forward and collect that and analyze it at that time.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bracco. Now we'll move on to our Director of Human Resources Personnel, Mrs. Mucha.
Thank you very much. I am asking your approval for all of the personnel items that were in your packet. There's lots of new hires this time.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Mrs. Kelly. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. For my second item, I'm also seeking approval for the employee handbooks that I gave out to you at the last board meeting. We'll be posting them to our internet and passing them out to all new employees as soon as I receive your approval.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Kelly,
Second.
second by Dr. Medlin. Any questions or comments?
I just have a comment. It's a great resource, and thank you again.
You're
I
welcome.
agree.
And the directors all had a hand in that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. For my third item, I am asking for 2 extracurricular stipends for high school freshman mentor program. You received an informational packet recently on the program and all the activities involved. It's such a worthwhile program because it not only does our freshman rush, but it follows those kids through PTE for the rest of the school year. So I'm seeking your approval for those 2 extracurricular positions and stipends.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Kelly,
Second.
second by Dr. Medlin. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. For my last item, I just thought I would go over the in and out of school suspension numbers for this past year as compared to the year before that. We wanted to just update you on that data. In your packet, you see I gave you a comparison between the 2019-20 and the 2020-21 school year. As you can see, the in-school suspensions were much lower, and the out-of-school suspensions were almost half of they were the previous year. I'm sure there's many factors involved in that, including some e-learners, and also including the fact that we are working with administrators, and administrators are working with the children, so we keep more kids in school. So I think this is showing that those efforts are starting to pay off. There's a slight increase in our expulsions. We went from 0 to 2, which is still a pretty small number for a school district of this size. And again, the administrators at the high school are trying to find alternate methods of working with these children who experience discipline problems without taking them out of school. So I just wanted to update you where we were on that data. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Terry.
Oh, and I appreciate all the extra work that goes into that, because if you're a principal and you're doing in school, then they're probably in your office or something like that. But darn it, that's where they need to be. They
That's where
can't
they need
be
to be.
home just having fun.
If we're doing our best for kids,
Yes, so we appreciate that. It's very important to keep those children in school as much as possible. So thanks for the extra efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to our brand-new Director of Primary Education, Dr. Bracy. I understand congratulations for doctor, so
Thank you so much.
congratulations.
Good evening, Superintendent Baracco, President Sues, board members, and our Lake Central community. I am coming before you tonight to address 3 topics: professional leave approvals, our I-Read 3 scores, and our social emotional learning initiative. Professional leaves. There are no field trip requests, but I am seeking your approval of the professional leaves you have received in your packets.
Move to approve the professional leaves.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin,
I'd like to second that motion.
second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. I read 3 scores. Before sharing the scores, I would like for us to give a round of applause to all of our teachers, support staff, administrators, and students, and of course, our Lake Central families for their hard work during this most difficult school year. Thank you to everyone. Even in the midst of a pandemic, over 92% of our students passed I Read 3. This is remarkable, so congratulations to everyone. Students who possess an IEP or an ILP and did not pass I Read 3 will continue to be supported by the general education, special education, and language development, or ELL teachers, working together. Students with none of the aforementioned exemptions will be provided with additional interventions through RTI and IAT, and/or will receive third-grade reading instruction from the reading interventionist in addition to their fourth-grade instruction. Social emotional learning is a hot topic I'm sure you all are well aware of. According to the National Education Association, SEL, or social emotional learning, should be a priority, especially during COVID and after COVID. The Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or CASEL as we all know it, framework identifies 5 core competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Our district has identified and adopted Second Step, which is an SEL curriculum to address these needs. Second Step is a digital program that addresses growth mindset and goal setting, emotional management, empathy, and kindness and problem solving. Even our ESSER funds require us to have a plan for social emotional health of our students. To meet the needs of our students, the elementary principals and I met and are working on a plan for elementary classes to incorporate an SEL goal in their school improvement plans for the 2021-22 school year. The goal will focus on teachers, SSPs, counselors, and school psychologists working together to facilitate morning SEL meetings. Initially, teachers will begin each morning with a 10-minute meeting, about 10 minutes. And how could this look? During the first month of school, teachers, SSPs, counselors will facilitate morning meetings with students and focus on setting the culture in the classroom and building, expectations, and completing a student interest survey. It should also be noted that all bullying prevention presentations will be completed by Monday, September 13th, and the goal is for morning meetings to begin on the same day. We should all be excited to know some of the topics covered by our new SEL program include teaching kindergarten students how to apologize. First graders learn how to deal with frustration. One of the topics introduced to second graders is ways to solve problems in life. Third graders learn how to ask questions, and fourth graders will learn how to say things respectfully. And parents, that one should go a long way. We know what happens when our babies become teenagers. The SSPs, counselors, and psychologists were planned for grade levels to focus on the same skills at the same time. This plan is a fluid work in progress, and as the teams and I work together to monitor the social emotional needs of our students, I will continue to keep the board updated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bracy.
Dr. Bracy, just for a moment, for those in the audience who did not have the opportunity to meet Dr. Bracy when she was appointed a couple of weeks back, I'd like to introduce her, and maybe you could face the audience in case they want to come to look or talk to you in your office.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've got an open door on an appointment basis.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Dr. Bracy, I just had a quick question. So the second step is the program, is like the curriculum? Yes. And then is it building-based? In other words, if Doug's building once, or is everybody going to be on the same page at the same time? Or is each building kind of unique in the way they implement it?
So of course, we have to address the students' needs. So we have to take it by a case-by-case basis, but the ultimate goal is to have everyone on the same page eventually. It's a work in progress. We're still planning it. We're still writing it in the school improvement plan. So it's a work in progress for everyone.
Okay.
And the most important thing is to meet those social emotional needs.
And it should be a work in process
Yes.
because it changes in a heartbeat, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That it does. The next would be Director of Secondary Education, Mrs. Castaneda, but I believe Mrs. Mucha will be presenting.
Yes, thank you. I am requesting approval for the professional leave requests that were in your revised packet.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second?
second by Mrs. Kelly. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. I'm also requesting approval for the 4 field trip requests that are in your packet for soccer, centralettes, tennis, and cross-country.
Also move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
Also second.
second by Mrs. Kelly. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Mucha, I guess I was not quite ready. I wanted to ask this Keep Indiana Learning Conference, do you know anything about it?
Keep Indiana, that is something that you would probably need to ask Sarah when she
Because there's
returns.
like a gazillion people signed up for it? Yeah.
That's a good thing, though.
48? I
Mhm.
just wondered, do you know anything about it, Doug? No? Okay, it must be
It's a
more,
virtual workshop, so they're not going to be traveling
Right,
outside
right.
of the area.
just they have a large number. I was curious what the subject was. Okay, I'll ask her, thank you.
Our Director of Student Services, Mrs. Gramala.
Tonight, I am seeking board approval for the special education excess cost resolution. I bring this to you every year. Excess cost funding that's a pool of money that the state has to support schools in meeting the needs of students with very significant disabilities. So when our teams at the schools decide we can't meet a student's needs here at Lake Central, we may look at residential placement or an alternative day placement. When we do that, we then seek support from the state for that additional cost. That's why it's called excess cost. So there's a contracting process that's involved, and with this resolution that allows me to sign off on the contracts rather than having to bother one of you to do that. So with your approval, then it's in your packet. I send that off to the state, and then it's good for a year. So any contracts that come up this school year, I'm allowed to sign.
Motion to approve. We have a motion by Mrs. Kelly,
Second?
second by Dr. Malco. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now on to our Directors of Facilities. Mr. Ledger.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. I have 3 items tonight for the board. The first one is to seek your approval to award and execute a contract to Schmidt and Associates for the engineering architectural design for a new HVAC renovation at Grimmer Middle School. I spoke to you most of the summer and late last semester about Grimmer is on its last leg, and we've been kind of doing some Band-Aids, and so we're going to take this opportunity to get some design work done for a full renovation. The stuff is rather antiquated, and it's hard to get parts and stuff, so we're going to go forward with the design and hopefully bid this project in the near future.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second?
second by Dr. Malco. Any questions, comments?
Is it just for Grimmer, Bill, or is there a second building?
That's the next one on the agenda.
Okay.
Yes, it's that item is just for Grimmer.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. In segue to Dr. Malco's question, I have the same thing for my next item, to award and execute the contract to Schmidt Associates for the architectural engineering design for the Lake Central Freshman Center HVAC renovation. That is also one of our buildings that has the oldest equipment. You know, we did a lot of things when we did the new school, but we weren't able, because of budget factors, to go into the freshman center. So we're going to take this opportunity as well to get a design going on that renovation as well, and hopefully bid that in the near future as well.
Also move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second?
second by Mrs. Kelly. Any questions or comments?
So specifically, the freshman center is this part of the building?
Yes.
And then also where the offices are?
No, that was done under the.
That was excluded, so it's
yes.
just like
It's just the
the,
classrooms, the LGI room, those areas,
I see.
first and second floor,
And it goes how far?
basically to Town Square.
To the town square?
Yeah, to where the demarc line is at the library where the Town Square meets.
Okay.
Cafeterias would be included as well.
Cafeteria will be included?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. My last item is just a quick update on summer projects. We are moving along, especially on the large projects. The secure entries at Coling and Pfeiffer are complete, as well as a new timeout room at Pfeiffer is complete. We are also all complete with the Bibbage renovation as far as moving a timeout room and dividing a classroom, or basically the multi-purpose room. That's all complete. We are struggling this summer because of COVID and the materials deliveries and scarcity of said materials. Example is we are done with all the parking lot striping with the exception of Holman, because we're going to pave there in the next 2 weeks. We're paving the Ring Road and paving the old Westlake parking lot. But some of the parking lot, we don't have the yellow striping because right now you can't get yellow paint, believe it or not. We stocked the Watson gym roof. We're gonna do that here as soon as the weather breaks. That was stocked on Friday, but I had to wait. He actually piecemealed me rubber that he had from old projects because I can't get rubber insulation right now, but he scraped around to get it from old projects, so we can do that now, so it's here. So we're making progress, and another thing, Piper, we started their PA system. We're getting a new PA system there last week, so that started, so we'll be done with there in a couple weeks too. So we're going along, and we'll be done by the time school is ready to start.
Glad to see you're putting those checks on that list, so.
Yes, yes.
Good for you.
And it'll be that way from now till the start of school.
I can only imagine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ledger, so then the buildings left for the secure entrances would be, what, Clark and Kaler?
No, Taylor has one. It'd be Clark and Holman.
Clark and Holman, okay, okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now into our Director of Business Services, Mr. James.
Good evening. So the first item on my agenda is to present to you our quarterly financial report. We finished the quarter at the end of June. It's also the end of our fiscal year, so I have two documents at your station. The first one, if you look in the top left-hand corner, says the fiscal year cash flow for the education fund. So this is our state support where we pay all of our classroom expenditures out of. We had a good year. Everyone, we talked about this last quarter, but just a few things to bring to your attention. The bottom right-hand corner shows the plus minus, how we operated for the year. It is a little misleading. It looks like we were $4 million to the good. That is not true. That is because we used a one-time transfer of referendum money that was in the original budget as a one-time transfer, the $3.7 million to shore up the cash balance in this fund, which had become problematic with the bond and rating agencies, and so that kind of skews the number. So in reality, we were about $300,000 to the good. Out of a $60 million budget, we like to be as close to the margin as possible. We're not here to stockpile and our cash in the fund. We're here to punch that money right back into the classrooms. And so just to kind of talk about some of the points, you can look at the details here throughout the months at your leisure, but two things. We've heard for a few years now how the General Assembly is really wanting school districts to transfer no more than 15% of their state funding to our operations fund to cover the other costs such as custodial and technology and security. If you are above that 15%, you have to come up with a plan in order to how you're going to keep more money here. So if you look at toward the top right-hand corner, for this fiscal year, we transferred about 8.5%. So we're really proud of that. We're keeping more money here in this fund. And then the other thing that came up during this legislative session just this past few months ago was this 45% number that was really just arbitrarily pulled out of the air. It came from a teachers' compensation committee report that felt that at least 45% of our state support needed to go to classroom certified teacher salaries, which is great. But unfortunately, the way the calculation was formulated, it doesn't take your taxes or your pension contributions that we are required to pay. FICA, Medicare is not part of that. Your health insurance costs are not part of that. Any certified staff member who is not actually teaching a group of students, so your social workers, your psychologists, people who are counselors who are working with students every single day, they are no longer part of that calculation either. So it's really kind of skewed. If it was up to me, I'd say you need to take the total cost of what it is for that classroom person. And to be fair, because compensation is total compensation, we've collectively bargained insurance for decades with teachers' unions. Sometimes the money is wanted in the insurance side instead of in the salary. I would rather say jack it up to 80%, but count everything. But we'll see. It was rushed through the legislative process rather quickly. But there's been a lot of feedback. There's other districts that have a lot more issues than we do. If you belong to a co-op for your special ed or CTE services. None of that money is part of that calculation. We're fortunate that we house those programs here in-house, and it does. So I think that will be changed. But anyway, we are at over 53% for that, the way it currently stands. So we are not at a threat of having any issues there at this time. So altogether, our education fund ran very well this year, and pretty soon we will start working again on the 21-22 this budget, and then the 22 calendar year budget, which I get to present to you in beginning of September. So before we go to the second page, any questions on any things there?
Rob, I'm sorry, I missed it. You said the education to operations transfer for us is 8.4%?
Yep.
And what's the recommendation or the wish of the state?
They want it no more than 15.
15, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for keeping it all together for us and getting that low rate.
Thank you. Okay, so then the second sheet says cash flows for all operating funds. And even though we hear a lot about tuition support and what we're getting for the state, there's really so much money that flows in between our education fund, our operations fund, and our referendum money. It's really, if we want to see how we're doing all together, you got to add them all together and take them as a whole, because money's just back and forth between the two funds for various reasons in the first place. And so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Our cash balance, when you add those all up, is a healthy balance. And if you go to the bottom right-hand corner, we're operating to the good again, and we're hoping to push through negotiations. We'll be able to use that money in order to do what the General Assembly is asking us to do, and is to put more money into the classrooms and teachers' pockets. And we've consistently done that. We try to feel like we're ahead of the game on that. And so with the new influx of money from the state through this past legislative session that Dr. Malco referred to when Mr. Slater was here, we are very appreciative of that, and we look forward to a good round of negotiations this year. So any questions you have for me regarding the quarterly and actually full fiscal report for this year? Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, my next item is to seek your approval to transfer textbook rental fees. We do this transfer twice a year, and just to tell you the backstory, when a parent pays their book bill, all the amount goes into the textbook rental fund, but some of those charges for non-books, for agendas and things that are used in the classroom, that's paid out of our education fund. So really, we have to follow the money, and so the costs that have been collected for those items that are paid out of the education fund, we compute what was computed during that 6-month period, and then I come to the board to seek your approval to follow the money and move that money that we raised to the education fund. So from January through June, we collected $88,792.69 of fees, and so I'm requesting a transfer of that amount from the textbook rental fund to the education fund.
Move to approve the transfer funds.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin.
Second?
Second by Mrs. Kelly. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. My next item is to seek your approval for the 2021-22 course fees that were outlined in your course packet.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Marshall.
Second.
Second by Dr. Malco. Any questions or comments?
Just the one, Rob, so I make sure I understood the jazz band beginning was there, but its intermediate was not on there, but jazz beginning was on there twice. Am I right?
That is correct. The correct course number was listed, and the correct fee was listed for the intermediate ensemble, jazz ensemble. The description had not been updated in Skyward yet. That's why it looked like the beginning jazz band was listed twice.
Got it.
But
Okay.
we have since made that update.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. But the course and fee, the fee that's related to that course is correct.
Okay, very good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. My next item is to seek your approval for our school lunch meal charging policy. The National School Lunch Program requires that school food departments establish written guidelines for how students and staff can charge meals. And so we have had these procedures in place for a while, but we've never really come to the board to formally approve them as a policy. So Deanne and Terry and I worked together and to kind of put everything in writing. And so we presented that to you in your board packet, and so we seek your approval for the meal charging policy as presented.
Move to approve the policy.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin,
Second?
second by Mrs. Kelly. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Really nothing different, it's just putting it in writing what
That is correct.
procedures have been.
Yep, and it is just like lots of policies, that we look at them regularly for, in essence, at what point do we send a student or a family to collections? When is it worthwhile? How is that done? But yes, for the most part, this is all the procedures that are currently been in place.
And while we're on this subject, I believe that have been issues in the past, and you've had to take people to collections. Is that still something that we do?
Absolutely.
Is that still something we do, or is that a thing of the past, or?
Oh, no, unfortunately, we still have a problem. We send people with delinquent food service accounts to collections every year. Actually, we're doing that this week. Been working with food service department. But our biggest issue is with our textbook rental fund for people who have not paid that textbook rental requirement. We send statements out every month with their phone calls. We really try to work with families. We encourage them to fill out the free and reduced applications. We really try to help our families because we know that there's a lot that are out there struggling. But at our next board meeting, I can report to you. We are literally started working on that today of this past year's amount to send to the collection agency for them to pursue. So I'll have a better total for you, what the number of people and the dollar amount that reflects at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
It's a step, as we've talked about and we've seen in the audit, we've got that large balance that we're in the hole in textbook rental, and it really is a problem. So we definitely, as we've always said, we don't want to take any privileges away from kids. But on the other flip side, when you have 80% of our families who are paying and doing the right thing, those other 20%, shouldn't, just get off scot-free either. So, but anyway, I don't want to digress.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And my final item is to seek your approval for the donations that were in your packet.
Move to approve the donations.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin,
Second?
second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our public comments portion of our meeting. There's just a couple things I'd like to share on behalf of the school board. We want to share that in addition to the speaker's name, I will be reading the address of the speaker being recognized to address the board. The board, as well as our audience, both here and at home, have a right to know if the speaker is a resident of St. John Township. Only those who have signed the speaker sheet and provided all requested information will be called on to speak. All of us on this board wants to remind all guests that public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person and 30 minutes total. If we are at the 30-minute mark, I will ask the board if they want to extend this period. If we extend the public comment section but then begin to hear repeated messages, we as a board reserve the right to end public comment period. The board would also like to remind all audience members to maintain silence throughout the entirety of the comments being made by any individual recognized to speak this evening. In order to keep things moving, we'll hold up a yellow card indicating to the speaker that they have 15 seconds to wrap up their comments. In order to be fair to all speakers, we will adhere to the 3-minute time limit. So with that, our first speaker is Mike Aurelio. I have you as 8895 Overlook Point, St. John.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Board of Education, Dr. Veracco, thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate it. CDC released a study in late May. This study compared COVID-19 infection rates across 169 K through 5 schools during November and December. That was before the release of the vaccine. Some schools required teachers, staff, and students to wear masks, and some did not. Infection rates were 37% lower for teachers and staff members where mask mandates were in effect, but they were statistically insignificant for the students with the mask mandates. So in other words, the mask mandate was not effective at reducing the spread of COVID-19 for the students. I am unaware of any credible study that shows over an extended period of time, similar to a school week, that mask mandates are effective at reducing the spread of COVID-19 among the students. Because of facts like this, Texas Governor Greg Abbott issued an executive order banning all mask mandates in state public schools. After June 4th, the order says no students, teachers, or other staff members or visitors may be required to wear a face covering. So every life is important. There is no doubt every life is important. So ages 12 and under in Lake County, in our county, as of last week, last month, deaths ages 12 and under, there was 0. In year 2021, ages 12 and under deaths from COVID, 0. In all of last year, deaths from ages 12 and under was 0. There's been no deaths in our county 12 and under. So hospitalizations. Hospitalizations are important as well. Hospitalizations during the same period is at 0 or near 0 as well. So leading causes of death and injury for ages 12 and under are accidents, car accidents, sport accidents, and other things that are cause of death are homicide and suicide. So mask mandates, they are not risk-free. They come at a cost. Depression and teen suicide rates have skyrocketed. Even here in our community, where our schools remained open last year, depression increased. I challenge anyone here to try to make an appointment seeking a mental health specialist. You will wait a long, long time for an appointment. COVID and mask mandates are absolutely linked to depression. I want to thank the Board of Education for the great decision last year, keeping our schools open. God bless you for that decision. Thank you. That was a great decision. Likely the same group that was pressuring you last year to keep our schools closed is now pressuring you to have a mask mandate. People who want others to wear want others to have a mask mandate should have the burden of proof, not the other way around. So my ask is, let the parents decide for their students. Some parents want their student to have a mask, others do not. Let the parents decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Madison. I have your address as 9412 Olcott Avenue, St. John?
That's correct.
Thank you.
My name is Robert Madison. I'm a proud parent of a first grade student at Coling Elementary School. I received an email from Superintendent Baracco about whether or not to require masks for K through 6th grades for the coming year, and I'm here to tell you the answer is no. School is a place for learning, but also a place for making friends. By forcing children to wear masks for 6 to 7 hours a day, you're taking that opportunity away from them by making them sit 6 feet apart at the lunch table or not having lunch at all, and letting them being close to their peers. Less than 50,000 healthy people died from COVID-19 last year. That is the same number of people who died of the seasonal flu in 2019, before the pandemic and the lockdown started. Of all alleged COVID deaths in Lake County, there are exactly 0 deaths of children between 0 and 19 in this county. This information is from the official coronavirus website of indiana.gov. That's for the entire pandemic. To continue to force children to wear masks while at school is now known to not be based on science, but on fear, and has been proven to be unfounded and not based in reality. The science is in. Children are not at risk of serious illness from COVID-19 and are at no risk of dying from it. You are instilling fear in these children from being around their peers and teaching them that other children are dirty and something to be avoided. The long-term effects of masking children for years at a time has not been discovered yet, and dropping test scores and student participation, I have a feeling the result is not a desirable one. Make masks optional for our children. There is no guidance required by the CDC to release the children of Lake Central School District of the burden you have thrust upon them. If continued masking is required, I will hold you personally responsible for the mental and emotional strain you have put on our children. And to continue this on into the new school year is unscientific, unethical, and not in the best interest of the children in this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvia Duns. Is that right? Dio, oh, sorry. I have your address as 9412 Alcott Avenue, St. John.
Yep. My name is Sylvia. As a parent of this school district, I am here to say that masks should be optional because the choice should be left up to the parents of what goes on my child's face. Taking that choice away from parents is repressive, and I won't stand for it. Brown and black individuals have fought too long for equal rights in this country, and now you're trying to take that away from me and my family. By forcing my child to wear the face on their mask, I believe any board member who stands in the way of lifting the mandate should be recalled, because you are not here to serve the children and the parents of this district, but your own agenda. The Indiana mask mandate has been lifted. It is time for the schools to catch up. It's time to lift the mask mandate for all students and not expect them to carry a burden they don't deserve.
Thank you. I think I'm reading this as Daniela Bulla. Pardon me. I have your address as 318 Nottingham Lane, Sherrville.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak to the board this evening. I am here on behalf of my children and others to ask the school board to allow our students to return to school without masks. Excuse me. It should be a parent's decision whether their child should wear a mask this upcoming school year. We must stop looking at public health from a singular lens and weigh the consequences of public health restrictions on healthy, innocent children. There is now significant evidence that children do not need to wear masks. Children are at a drastically lower risk from COVID-19 than adults. Data from schools across the U.S. which did not implement mask mandates show infection rates as low as those that did. Also, data shows that those who are asymptomatic have a significantly lower viral load and rarely transmit COVID-19 to others. With teachers, staff, and other adults all having the opportunity to be fully vaccinated, the perceived risk of spreading the virus to adults is removed. Therefore, there is no public health justification for mandating masks in school. When balanced against the physical, emotional, and mental harm that is now becoming evident, it is clear that masks may do more harm than good for children. As I have stated, I'm not asking to take away another parent's right to choose for their children. I'm asking the board to consider letting the parents make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Kate Mikulskis. I have you at 2750 Camelot Drive, Dyer.
Yes, that is correct. Good evening. My daughter will be entering kindergarten in the fall at Protzman. I am here tonight to respectfully request that the board require universal masking for students ages 11 and under until a COVID-19 vaccine is approved and available for that age group later this fall. Please know that while those of us with this perspective may not be as vocal or as visible as the parents who have a different viewpoint, we feel just as strongly and passionately about our position, and we hope our input and concerns are heard just as much. Some people are inclined to compare COVID-19 infection in children to the flu. However, I feel that at this time that is a faulty comparison. With the flu, I have a choice as a parent to provide my child with some level of protection with the seasonal flu shot. But currently, I am unable to choose to vaccinate my child against COVID-19. Speaking of choices, I can choose to opt my child out of going to a store, dining out at a restaurant, or attending a birthday party. But I cannot and should not have to choose to opt her out of an education, especially not at her local public school. All I'm asking is for the district to simply follow the recommendations of the Indiana Health Department. If Lake Central were to disregard the guidance of the state health department, with all due respect, it would set a disturbing and dangerous precedent. Last school year, Lake Central was able to successfully provide full-time in-person learning because you implemented the health department's mitigation measures. We can all agree that we want our children to be in school, in person, as much as possible. But without continuing mitigation measures, including universal masking for elementary students, many students will have to miss school. And this time around, it won't be staying home due to a precautionary quarantine, but rather due to actual infection and illness that they contracted in their own classroom. Masks help to keep students in school. Therefore, that is why I am requesting the implementation of universal masking for students ages 11 and under in accordance with the guidance from the Indiana Department of Health until a COVID-19 vaccine is approved and available for that age group later this fall. I would like to sincerely thank the board and the administration for your willingness to make tough decisions. As I'm sure you know, tough decisions are often unpopular decisions, but I hope and pray that you will make the wise decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Allison Kwiatkowski. I have your address as 1701 Stillwater.
Yeah, in Dyer.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm a school psychologist and a mother of a little girl going to first grade. So she's been here for a year now. And I spoke to the board on the June 7th meeting about the importance of unmasking our kids. I want to speak about that and the risks of vaccines. Based on the CDC's infection fatality ratio, the best estimate of surviving COVID-19 for 0 to 17-year-olds is 99.998%. Children are not drivers of transmission and have not been found to act as a brake on transmission per best empirical data. There are virtually no fatality risk. And even though community levels of COVID-19 have increased, rates of infection among children have stayed consistently low. There have been little to no reports of hospitalizations or death among this age group, as the man previously said. Based on these facts alone, what is the justification for masking children? If they are not at risk and do not typically spread the virus, why are we making them wear masks? There was a test done on the masks kids wore at school in Florida, and the lab found dangerous bacteria, parasites, and fungi on the masks. These masks were cleaned before school and worn for one school day before they were sent to the lab. One day. Our kids wear them daily for 7 to 8 hours a day. We are already seeing the negative effects on mass e-learning and lockdowns on kids' social, emotional, and physical well-being. Depression, anxiety, suicide rates have skyrocketed. We have not seen the full ramifications of this yet either. The WHO admits that there is an absence of strong scientific evidence, and they have very limited data on masking children. A CDC report released in September 2020 shows masks and face coverings are not effective in preventing the spread of COVID-19, and wearing a mask did not reduce the risk of infection. Regarding vaccines, the nation's largest teachers union, NEA, has called for mandatory vaccinations and testing for all students and staff before returning to in-person instruction. This is outrageous. If schools are even considering this, it's a crime against humanity. I'm sorry, but it is. It's unconstitutional, it's unethical. This vaccine was authorized by the FDA for emergency use only. It has not been FDA approved. This means that the vaccine testing and production happens at the same time instead of testing happening before production. Therefore, we do not have any long-term data to support the vaccination of children. The VAERS reporting system says there's over 400,000 adverse reactions and 9,000 deaths.
Time. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Dan Rising. I have you as 14902 93rd Avenue.
Correct.
Thank you.
As many of the parents here have spoken to you guys about the ability for them to make the choice whether or not their children wear masks, I would like to provide you guys with information from the Journal of American Medicine on the negative causalities of students wearing masks. JAMA did a study and they participated 25,000, just under 26,000 students. To start off, 68% of those students had to be corrected multiple times on the proper wearing of their mask. They couldn't wear them properly. How is that going to do anyone good if they're fumbling with them, fixing them? We're not supposed to touch them, all of that. We're dealing with children, not adults. So they can't wear them right. The normal CO2 content is 0.04 or 400 parts per milliliter or million. I'm not sure, I only parenthesized it. The safe limit in an enclosed room is 0.02. At the end of this study, which is also 2,000 ppm, at the end of this study, some of these students were registering as high as 25,000 ppm from the CO2 intake while wearing the mask throughout their school day. I have a copy of this entire study for you guys to distribute amongst yourselves. I also have a question for the board. If the board members are vaccinated and the faculty is vaccinated, where is the autonomy showing that if you want this done, if you want to encourage parents to do these things, that you all are sitting up here masked? If we are safe and we are unvaccinated, it should be, again, an administration and an individual decision to not have the mask, just like it should be a parental decision. Also, it is not like the polio and the other vaccines. The HIPAA requirements that allow schools to inquire as to vaccination does not extend to experimental vaccines. The school cannot ask for those records. They cannot request them. They can only ask for them. You are not entitled to those records. I also have the 14 and under are less likely to get COVID-19. COVID cases for children is only 13% of all registered cases. And if parents are not left to make a decision, you are just asserting that you know more than the parents, and that is something that as a public educator, you do not have the right to do. Here are both studies and a list of statistics on deaths for COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Frizel. I have your address is 9966 Pheasant Lane.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are we allowed to ask the board any questions at all?
Sure.
Okay, so I'd like to get a little quick explanation of what this COVID committee is that was formed. I couldn't find any additional information online about it, and what's the purpose of it, and why are there not any parents on that committee?
Sure, it's a discussion among teachers and administration regarding how we're going to handle, for instance, the live look-in this school year. If someone does get COVID, yeah, if you go back to last year, a teacher may have 20% of their class at home. So they had the camera on, they were watching, and they were checking in with those students who were learning from home last year as part of their daily practice. And so we're working out the rules of play, if you will. If you only have one child out of 35 in your classroom at home, the check-in time would not be required during the class. That's one thing we've been talking about. We've been talking about assemblies. How do we want to handle those? Elementary classroom parties where in the past we've had numerous adults come in. Last year we did them with teachers only. Should we do that for another year just to minimize the traffic? So really not the decision about masks.
Okay.
Really just the logistics of how we're going to have visitors in the schools and what should we allow and what shouldn't we allow, what are we comfortable with, and cafeteria use and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Next question would be, we talked about how you're going to isolate. I know you haven't made that determination yet if somebody gets COVID. I know they walked in with the 6-foot stick in the classrooms in the past, and if somebody was there, they quarantined them. So my question is, if they're fully vaccinated, they don't have to do that. You don't have the right to know if somebody is vaccinated or not. So how would you determine that? If
That's where I think, Jeff, that they'll come forward with their card and say, hey, I'm clean, I don't need to be home. But with the 3-foot rule instead of 6, you have a lot smaller pool,
But
other
you're
than the
asking
school
if they're
bus.
vaccinated then, which is a HIPAA violation.
No, we're asking them, we're basically telling them that you were in the range, and they can get out of being quarantined if they prove otherwise they're going to have to go be learning from home.
But that's a HIPAA violation.
No, it's not. We're not mandating that they present
You're mandating
record.
that they get quarantined if they don't, though.
Yeah,
And they could
that's
be
right.
fully vaccinated or not vaccinated.
Well, that's what the State Department of Health has told us to do.
Okay. All right, so then For my comments, what I'd like to say, I'm in favor of no masking whatsoever. A number of people have covered the statistics already. I know you've got statistics on both sides, but I have students, I have 2 students in this school, and I know of plenty of students. I know some of them that are going to counseling now because of the e-learning, because of the mask, because of a number of different things. My point is that if everybody believes that these vaccinations work and that the masks work, get the vaccination and wear your mask. And what are you worried about everybody else for? If they truly work and you really believe they work, or don't they? You can't take both sides of the table. I mean, if vaccinations work and the masks work, those people that are vaccinated, they can wear their masks and they should be relatively safe. Isn't that correct?
I think you're spot on with that, but it's the unvaccinated population that becomes the gray area.
That's their choice.
No,
That's
no.
our choice as
No,
parents.
no, the young kids don't have a choice yet.
Yes, well, that's the parents' choice. We're responsible until they're 18 years old, so they do have a choice. They don't have a lot of choices. We're the parents, we're the guardian, that's why we have to, they don't sign releases.
Well, there's not, if you come from the camp where you believe that the inoculation is an extra layer of protection, those young kids don't have the option of having that extra layer of protection. That's why they are in that gray area. That's why we're getting the mixed signals from State Department of Health and the CDC and getting nothing out of our local health department as of lately.
I don't have young children, so I'm not really talking about those as much, but I am concerned that we may change something and put those restrictions on the older kids as well.
That's not the plan at this time.
Okay.
7 through 12 will be optional.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Lynn Neese. Nees. Okay. Amber, I'm sorry. Vladica? Is it Vladica? I have you as 3719 Ginger Court.
All right, so I don't have a speech. I don't have any papers or articles, but I do work front lines. I have not had any children under the age of 12 pass away from COVID. The masks are absolutely disgusting. Anyone that has to wear them all day, every day, can tell you that the film, the bacteria on them is at large loads. I've had more kids come in the past year with bacteria infections on their face, behind their ears from these masks, even, yes, the ear bands. The anxiety in these children, you all are school educators, you know the importance of nonverbal communication is being a large part of our communication. When you block that off for kids, what are we telling them? What are we showing them? They're not getting that signal, and in a world today of technology, they're already losing out on human interaction and body language by the means of text messaging. It's important for kids to see your face. It's important for kids to see your emotions. These masks should be optional. If a family wants their kids in a mask, they should be able to put their kid in a mask. But the ones that don't want to wear the mask, they should not have to wear these masks. It's just not healthy. I have patients that come into the ER, the ambulance report will say that they're 98% on room air. I look at the patient wearing their mask, and they're 90%. How is it 98% on room air and now they're 90%? I look at the nurses, say, take that mask off their face, and within 5 seconds, their oxygen's going up. Hypoxia is known to increase fatigue, mental inability to think, to focus. It's not good. Cancers are reported with decreased oxygen. Metabolism changes, everything changes, increase in headache, illness, infection. You're actually increasing infection in these kids by cutting off their oxygen. Do not mask these kids. These kids are not dying from COVID. Their risk is very, very low, and if the parents want to mask their kids, let them mask their kids. But the ones that want to make the choices to let the kids breathe, let them breathe. That's it.
Thank you. Hadid Haddad. I have you as 1426 Shaler Lane, Dyer?
Yes,
Shaler,
thank you.
you.
I would just like to say that I am a math teacher at Morton High School, so I'm familiar with the classroom setting. I'm just going to read off of this, and I'm just going to kind of go quickly. I have a few like questions that don't really need to be answered, but just to think about. Why is mandatory even an option? Number one, it should be optional. So for those that want to mask their children, they can mask them with 2 masks and a hazmat suit if they want. That's up to them. In the beginning of the school year, it was only during transition. I don't know if you guys remember that. And I was so happy that it was during transition. I felt so relieved because I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. When they're seated in their desk, what it was before was that when they're seated in their desk, they're allowed to take off their mask and freaking breathe. But then all of a sudden it changed for whatever reason, so they wore a mask all year. If it is a possibility, if need be, transition, school buses, whatever, that's fine. But seated, I don't understand how that, I can't. Sorry, excuse me, I lost my thought. And I just want to say, like, I'm not calling anyone out here, but I did notice some school board members removing their masks to speak or maybe to breathe. Why is that an option for you guys, but not for our children? That's just something to think about. My younger children do go to Plum Creek, which is a private Christian school. Masks were optional. They haven't worn a mask all year, and neither of them had COVID. Their class was never quarantined due to COVID, and you know preschoolers, they are all up on each other. So germs, whatever, if they were supposed to get it, they would have got it by now. So I guess I just would rather not pay for 3 kids in private school. So if we can, not do that, so I don't have to do that, that'd be great. And then I just have, my closing statement. I think we can all say that we know much more about COVID now than we did a year ago. We all have the same information. We all have the same stats. It should be up to the child's parent on what we do with that information. Mandating anything at this point is absurd. We all have options, and please let us choose. Like I said, those that want a mask, feel free, head to toe. We don't care. But don't mask our kids. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was our last speaker that had signed up. So with that, we will move on to our board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Mr. Marshall?
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Kelly?
Welcome to Dr. Bracy. We haven't gotten a chance to meet yet, but welcome. Thank you.
Is that it? Thank you. Dr. Medlin?
Dr. Box is a gynecologist, not an epidemiologist. The Center for Disease Control and the Indiana Department of Health both recommend masks for unvaccinated K-6 kids. I believe Lake Central School Corporation should follow the recommendation of the experts. That's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Malco?
Yes. Good to be back. Nice to see everyone again. First of all, I read that Matt Litwicki, those of you that would have connections to Bibbage School and Dyer, he was drafted by is it the Red Sox, Jerry? Yes. Yeah, so is that pretty awesome? One of our Lake Central grads, and is playing baseball professionally. Very exciting. I thank all of you for coming out and sharing your opinions about this. It's very important for us to hear from both sides. I'm sure that most of us have a kind of a way that we're leaning, but it does help to have your input. And I had a question, and I don't know if you'll have the answer to this, Dr. Rocco, but I believe last year we masked everyone, but the state indicated that we did not have to mask K1 and 2 last year, but we did. Do you have any data on any results from the K1 and 2 not being masked in other districts? Do you have anything out there? Okay. I have not heard that there was an extreme amount of cases in those buildings, those school corporations that chose not to mask at K1 and 2, but I didn't know what the beat on the street was about that. It is a very important decision, and those of you that bring up the social emotional concerns, you are so right on that. I just can't stress that enough. It reminds me after breaking my leg and being in rehab for 9 weeks by myself, it gets to you after a while. So it's something that we definitely need to be cognizant of and think about. And I heard graduation went really well, and we're ready for another school year now, right? Okay, thank you. That's all.
Mr. Rising, I believe you gave me there's only one copy here, right? I'll make sure that the rest of the board gets a copy. Okay. Yep, it's all good. I would also like to thank everyone for coming out to speak, and I also want to just make it very clear that at least and I think I can speak for all the board members, we're very grateful for each and every one of our LC staff that were able to keep our schools going last year for us. So that's all I have. Thank you. We'll go on to Dr. Baracco.
Yeah, so we're back here on August 2nd. We have 2 meetings in August, only one this month. We'll see you all then.
Thank you. So do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Is there a second?